Hello and welcome to this episode of the Spiced In Podcast. My name is Jacob and I am your host as we go through my great addiction that is Star Wars. Just to catch up on what I've been doing, saw on Instagram or Twitter, I just got the first book in the Thrawn trilogy, the new canon Thrawn trilogy. There's a fourth book there's going to be a second Thrawn trilogy that starts in May, so I'm going to try and catch up for that. So I will be starting Thrawn. Hopefully I can talk about it on the podcast in two to 3 weeks. So there's that going on. I also finished Clone Wars Season 5. So, as all Clone Wars series, it's pretty hit or miss at times. But when it was on this season, it was on. I really liked the last arc especially. It was a great development for Ahsoka's character and, kind of the end of Ahsoka's character as far as we're concerned in Clone Wars, at least for now. And then, Clone Wars Season 7, that'll be in, I think it's mid-February. The first episode airs on a Monday, and I hope that's not the regular schedule. I mean, it's just so much easier for me to do everything on the weekends, so it would be hard. I don't want to be a full week late on episodes, so we'll just kind of see. Hopefully it's just like Mandalorian, where the first episode's on a different date, and the rest of them are on Fridays, because every single Disney Plus show has aired on Fridays, so hopefully they'll do that as well. Another thing I want to talk about is Project Luminous. So if you haven't heard, there's a new initiative for Star Wars publishing called Project Luminous. We don't know basically anything about it. There's, I think, 3 or 4 author names that are attached to it, and it's going to be some sort of multimedia, potentially, project. We know that the comic publishing and the book publishing arms are both going to be participating in it, but we're supposed to find out more sometime this month, so hopefully we'll figure out what's going on there. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about more of that, maybe next episode or the episode after that, and we can figure out what exactly that's going to entail, because it's supposed to be the next big thing for Star Wars. But anyways, we're here to talk about Vader, the Vader comic book. So this will be Vader 1 through 6, and yeah, let's just hop in. So Vader is written by Kieran Gillen and illustrated by Salvador Larroca. Doing issues 1 through 6. Issue 1, again, just like the Star Wars comic book, we get our own little opening crawl, and this is also post-Death Star destruction. It takes place pretty much parallel with the Star Wars comic we read last week, but we're told that Vader must pay for failing the Emperor with the Death Star. We start off with him entering Jabba's palace, and he kills some Gamorrean guards on his way in. He meets up with Bib Fortuna and tells him that he must speak with Jabba. Jabba's pretty upset because Vader is here early, apparently, and he killed his guards. And Vader tells him that he's quite generous of him for only having killed 2 of his guards. Jabba asks what he can do for the Empire, and Vader has him dismiss the audience around him. He then tells him that the favor is going to be personal. Vader's going to return tomorrow for the official meeting for the Empire, but this is a personal matter right now. Jabba tells him, do not try a mind trick, but Vader tells him that that's not the way of the Sith, because the way of the Sith is about power and manipulation rather than trying to use simple mind tricks. We cut down to see Vader kind of teetering on the edge of the trapdoor for the Rancor pit, while Jabba's making some vague threats about the bounties that the rebels have out for Vader right now. Jabba asks if he's brave or foolish, and Vader asks if Jabba is in return. Jabba retorts, "Oh Jedi, always making things so difficult," and all of the goons come back behind Vader and start firing as he deflects all the shots. Jabba opens the trapdoor, but it only befalls one of his own goons. And Vader kills the rest all one by one, as to be expected. And Jabba kind of tells him, let's not be hasty here. But Vader comes back and is like, you call me a Jedi, you know nothing. Mind tricks are not the dark side. We prefer to use the Force, as he starts to choke Jabba. Jabba, of course, relents, and Vader tells him what he needs. We cut to one day of go on the Imperial Palace on Coruscant. Vader's explaining his failures on Psi Moon 1, which again we covered in the last episode. He's explained the failures to the Emperor, and the Emperor, is saying this is a considerable setback. It was, again, the largest weapons manufacturing facility in the entire galaxy. They're currently torturing Overseer Aghanim on his failures to try and get any information he might have about the rebels. And Vader says that the Overseer has failed them, and the Emperor tells him that, the Overseer won't fail us again, but what about you? The Emperor's very upset that they'd kept around the skeleton of the Republic with the Senate for 20 years while waiting for the Death Star to finish. And now that both of them are gone, they lack the control that they once had, and this is all Vader's fault. Vader allowed the Falcon to escape the Death Star with a tracking beacon, and that led to the destruction of everything that they had built. Vader accepts part of the blame, but he says this is not all of his fault, that the Death Star is arrogant and it cannot compare to the power of the Force. But the Emperor cuts him off and tells him that the other leaders share the blame, of course, but Vader's the only one left alive to take his ire. It's like, oh, you are truly the chosen one, Vader. Chosen to be the one responsible. Vader tells him that he's going to handle it, but the Emperor tells him that he's a blunt instrument, better to be wielded than to wield. Tag, who's, if you remember A New Hope, the dude with the giant sideburns on the Death Star, the Emperor says he was the only one to truly understand the arrogance of the Death Star and the threat of the rebels. He survived the destruction of the Death Star, apparently, and will be running things from now on. The Emperor tells him to go meet with Jabba as he returns to his office to meet with some strange cyborg-looking man. Vader asks him who he is, and the Emperor won't tell him. The Emperor asks if he has anything else to report. We see a flashback of all the events that's happened recently. The showdown with Obi-Wan, the trench run, and Cymoon 1 confronting Luke, but he tells him no. Vader gets on his Star Destroyer and starts to head out towards Tatooine, and they head there early. We jump ahead a day, and Vader's meeting with the bounty hunters from Jabba. We're with Boba Fett and a black Wookiee whose name is Black Krrsantan. I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's Wookiee. It's Krrsantan. So, if you want to pronounce it any way you want, knock yourself out. We're going to go with Black Krrsantan. Vader has Boba Fett track down Luke, and he wants him alive. We saw that encounter again in the Star Wars comic, and the Wookiee is going to find the agent who's working for the Emperor. The camera then spins around Darth Vader, and we realize that he's slaughtered a Tusken Raider camp. That's the end of issue 1. So going right into issue 2, we open on an Imperial shuttle under attack in space by pirates. This pirate ship appears to be some sort of Corellian blockade runner, similar to the Tantive 4. The shuttle is about to die when Vader comes in with his TIE Advance and 2 TIE fighters on the flank. The pirate ship tries to escape, and Vader says it's automated. Vader destroys its engines, and they manage to capture it. He returns the bridge with Tag aboard, and he mentions that it was a highly advanced robotic ship. Tag tells him he must find the source of the attacks, because they're targeting the supplies coming from Jabba. He also informs him that, he is now Grand General Tag, and he deserves that respect. Vader thinks that someone's working from the inside, but Tag said that it's pretty much the average piracy that goes on around here, but they still need to figure out what it is and stop it. He goes into a bit of a tirade about the waste of the Death Star. He tells them how many Super Star Destroyers they could have made from the resources put into Tarkin's folly. Vader says, Tarkin had vision, you have graphs. If you read the Tarkin novel by James Luceno, you see there's a lot of mutual respect from Tarkin and Vader. They both, have their wheelhouses, and they are in strong command of it. And this is also, you see a bit of a background in the Clone Wars TV show as well. But Tag comes back with telling him, I have graphs and the command. Tag tells him that the endlessness of the fleet will be more powerful than any single asset, whether that be the Death Star or Vader. But they're going to have the Corvette repaired and try and use it to send back and find the source of the piracy. Vader's skeptical of that idea, but Tag persists, and he tells him it's going to work. Meanwhile, he's told that he's basically going to have a babysitter for the time being to watch over him, assigned by Tag, and that's going to be Lieutenant Un-I. Vader tells the lieutenant to watch himself because he is not patient, and the lieutenant comments on some comms that he appeared to receive from Boba Fett. Vader tells him that he's going to explain it when they return, and he goes to prep for the mission. The droid ship that they repaired is returning to the base out in the Outer Rim, and the pirates dock it. It's sort of an asteroid base, and Vader emerges from the robot ship with a strike force. Other pirates deeper in the base realize that base is under attack, and they activate defenses. They mention they send out some special defenses from Aphra. Meanwhile, Vader's astromech is getting to work outside of space. This is an astromech that we saw earlier on the Star Destroyer with Tag, but it has its own mission apparently. Vader and his group then get surprised by 2 heavily armed droidekas with a bunch of extra armaments, and then still the astromech is going off doing his own thing, and he enters the base from a different area. The stormtroopers are getting destroyed by these droids, and Vader says he can't use his lightsaber on the missiles, but he's not without hope. He just uses the Force and sends them back to Cinder. The astromech again is finishing up and goes back to the Corvette. The pirates at this point realize that they are without hope and go to activate the self-destruct for the base. Vader has the stormtroopers return to ship, but him and the lieutenant have to go further to finish the job. He gets data from the base, and they narrowly escape its destruction. He tells Tag that the plan was perfect, and the pirates were backed by the Crymoris Syndicate. He also tells him that the lieutenant was a mole in the operation, and there was info on the pirates' computer systems that confirmed this. Vader then returns to the astromech, and we're revealed that it had planted information inside the system that pinned the lieutenant as the mole. He then vents the droid into space and it self-destructs, and he says one can always trust droids. Next on to issue 3, a mysterious woman is on a mission in Quarantine World 3, Calahadan. This is a doozy. Caladahan space. Star Wars can be pretty rough with pronunciations when you're trying to do it on the fly from reading. Just wait till I get to Thrawn. Good God. But anyways, she's entering what appears to be some sort of vault, and she's bypassed all the security, but just to be safe, she sends out some antique stealth micro-droid dust into the air, and they find some laser tripwires in, a very heisty style. So she crawls under all the tripwires to the next end of the vault to find a 000 personality matrix. She steals it, it's crawling back out when she accidentally bumps a laser and sets off all sorts of security measures. She's running out, and she nearly makes it back when she's intercepted by a group of B2 super battle droids led by one of the aliens there. We find out that her name is Dr. Aphra, as referenced in the last issue, and the alien, his name is Utani Zane. He says there's a reason that the Matrix has been locked away for centuries, but she says it doesn't belong in a museum, it belongs in an armory. And he thinks that, she should belong in a prison. But suddenly a B2 informs him that a ship has arrived. And that ship belongs to none other than, of course, Darth Vader. It is Vader comic, we have to get him in here somewhere. Utani tells him that this is a quarantine world and the treaty bans him from being there. But Vader just force pushes 3 of the droids off a ledge while the other 2 start firing on him. Utani tries to run and escape when Dr. Aphra goes after him and tries to secure the personality matrix. They tumble and it goes off the edge and she dives for it, managing to grab it but having one arm on the ledge. Vader, having killed both of the remaining droids and Utani, then says he needs her, and they go back to her ship, the Archangel. She's kind of honestly fangirling over him and, his reputation. He tells her that he recently destroyed some droids of hers, those droidicas from earlier, and he's impressed with her work. She tells him that he is a rogue archaeologist and asks how he found her. We see a quick montage of Vader murdering a bunch of people trying to figure out where she is, and she's like, never mind, I probably don't want to know. So she starts telling him about the 000 matrix she just stole. It's a protocol droid personality and was shut down for some bugs, twitchiness, glitches, tendency to drain organics to collect their blood, the basic things. It speaks some languages that no one else knows, and that's why she needs it. But it's currently code locked, so she'll have to take a few hours to break into it and get it running. So Vader's able to unlock it instantly. She installs it into a silver protocol droid, and its eyes light up red just like C-3PO in Rise of Skywalker. It introduces itself as 000, says, "I'm a protocol droid specialized in etiquette, customs, translations, and torture." She has it log her and Vader as the masters, and she goes to shake his hand, but it says that she probably shouldn't do it, because he might accidentally fatally shock her. Old habits die hard, He remarks since there's no one out there to murder, how can he help them? She wants him to wake the astromech, and Vader thinks it's a lot of work for just one droid. But she tells him that this is a BT-1 Blastomech prototype droid. It wiped out its entire Tarkin Initiative base before blowing it up and jettisoning itself into space. The Tarkin Initiative is more or less the secret weapons R&D wing of the Empire. They developed the tech for the Death Star, both of them, and that's where Krennic worked from Rogue One. 000 says he's also a part of the Tarkin Initiative, which makes no sense based on what we just learned, because 000 was apparently locked down in quarantine for centuries, which, predates the Empire, so I'm not really sure how that works, but whatever. And he says it's a good plan, so he goes to wake up BT-1. BT immediately activates and deploys a crazy amount of weapons, and Vader draws his lightsaber to defend, but 000 tells BT that they are his masters, and it's like, besides, if he killed them all, who would clean up the mess? Dr. Aphra tells Vader that she is very nervous about being around him. He says he used to have armies and resources, but that time has passed, and now he needs his own private resources. So she was supposed to deliver these droids to the droid Gotra, which is a lethal battle droid group that wanted to take down the Empire, but she realizes that Vader's her only mission now. He tells her he needs more troops, and they said she should go to his next target on Geonosis. Issue 4. She mentions the droid Gotra heard of a surviving Geonosian queen with a droid factory, so they must come here. She said it should be quieter since the plant was sterilized. If you remember from the end of Revenge of the Sith, the Death Star construction started overhead of Geonosis, but once that partnership was ended, the Empire sterilized the entire planet and wiped it clean of life, just as a safety precaution. However, one queen apparently has survived. She sends the droids down into the cave and asks Vader if he had ever been here before. We quickly see a flashback of him kissing Padme as they ride into the arena, and he tells her to stop asking questions. The droids, meanwhile, are mapping a route ahead, and they run into some kind of monstrous-looking B-1 battle droid Geonosian hybrids. 000 asks if they speak Geonosian High Mind, because he does, but he's like, oh, well, I have nothing to say, and BT torches them. As they're walking through the cave, he thinks of some words for them. Haha, you are on fire, and also dead. So it's like a very quippy, murdery C-3PO, and 000 is a lot of fun. Dr. Aphra and Vader are following them, and she comments on the factory still being alive and says the queen probably doesn't see them as droids. It makes sense having an immortal queen that is sterile. Queen would try to continue the species by any means necessary. When biology failed, she turned into science. They aren't droids to her, they're just like her children. She asks Vader if it's a good idea to steal a robot womb factory off a homicidally broody alien queen. He just simply jumps down and says, yeah. The queen asks them why they're here, and if the Empire is not taken enough with all their bombs, he tells her no. So, high word count for Vader right now, and just chops her body off from the factory. She survives this and tells all of her children to stop them. They signal the droids to step in, and they deploy a location beacon as BT blasts the monsters. Dr. Aphra jumps down into the blaze of the fight and tells Vader that they can't get the beacon up to the roof, but he just, points his finger up and uses the Force to send it flying to the ceiling. Then the Archangel blasts a hole in the roof, and Vader protects them from the falling debris with a Force shield. A crane quickly descends to take the factory, and the Queen tells her children to try and get it back. Vader's ship, which is a Nabooian royal ship, like Padme, the one Padme had in episode, 1 through 3, carries them all away. Back aboard the Archangel, Dr. Aphra fires up the factory and it begins to produce some commando droids. T0 has some comments on what their quality looks like, and Dr. Aphra explains that part of his reason that he was shut down is because he has some strange ideas on self-improvement for droids. And then she goes to ask Vader if he's going to kill her now or later. She's smart. She understands what's going on. He has everything that he needs, and he doesn't really need her anymore. She knew her time was limited once he found her, but she's ready for whatever's to come. But Vader luckily says that she's resourceful, and she might live as long as he has a use for her. But if she tries to blackmail him, then he's going to kill her. She says she's a risk, though, and he needs to win. So when it comes time to do this, she hopes that he does it with a lightsaber. 000 comes and interrupts them to inform them that they have a signal from a bounty hunter, and it's from Black Cursington. He delivers the mysterious cyborg man from earlier in the Imperial Palace that met with the Emperor, and he says that they needed to extract some information from his involvement with the Emperor. The man says he obviously won't yield to torture, but Vader tells him he can make him talk, but he doesn't have the time for this, so 000 is going to step in and take over. 000 makes several more remarks on his upgrades, grafted flesh from multiple species. This could feed into 000's opinions on improvement for droids. But 000 returns to Vader later to tell him that he has good news and bad news. The good news, the man is Dr. Silo 4, and he knows where his base is, his business with the Emperor, and even more. Vader tells him to dispose of him, so 000 tells him he has double good news because he's already dead. Base is a novel organic structure inside an isolated outer nebula. 000 tells Vader that he's going to be interested in meeting his rivals. Who are those rivals, you might ask? Apparently, they are the Emperor's replacements for Vader. So, the Emperor has a lot of contingency plans. He focuses so much on the future and what's to come. So it definitely makes sense that he's going to have some plans for if Vader doesn't live up to expectations. And that's the end of issue 4. Issue 5. Dr. Aphra and Vader are coming in on a base in his Nabooian ship. The base happens to be a giant space whale cyborg creature, and it's in a giant space whale pod with many similar looking ones. They begin to board, and Dr. Aphra sends an ion charge in ahead of them, and she tells Vader, "May the Force be with you." From inside the ship, we see the blast door being cut down, and it's kind of a similar vibe to the Tantive 4, but when the smoke clears, the droids come in rather than Vader. They start to introduce themselves when Vader's lightsaber stabs through the organic wall of the whale, and 000 tells them all that he's just a distraction as the pirates get vented. Dr. Aphra seals the whale back up, and Vader goes in with his droid army to take it over. They split into two groups to head between the locations known as the dojo and the barracks. Vader goes with some droids and crushes the barracks with little resistance, while the other droids go to the dojo and meet 2 unarmed humans. Suddenly, Dr. Aphra comes into Vader to tell him that she lost contact with the other group, so Vader goes after the dojo. And he enters on 2 lightsaber-wielding individuals. One's a male, one's a female. The male closes the door behind Vader, but Vader notices it wasn't with the Force. He tells them that they are not Jedi or Sith, and the male tells them that this is the last thing that they want to be, because they are history. The 2 fighters who we learn are named Morit and Aelin get called off by Dr. Silo from earlier. The one that we just killed. But it's not Silo 4, this one is Silo 5. He explains when his last body didn't come back, his next body was activated. And he is there to train the replacements for Vader, to be something better. He tells them that the Force is obsolete, and these are its successors. So then we see who those successors are. And it's not just the 2 from earlier, it also includes a Trandoshan, a Mon Cal, human woman with a probe droid and a bunch of spherical droids around her. Vader tells him that this is blasphemy, but Silo says it has nothing to do with the Force, just like Vader. Vader's so much machine that he's a bridge between the 2 worlds, and these are in a way his children. Vader goes to kill Silo in his anger, but he is stopped by none other than the Emperor himself. He tells Silo that Vader is very sensitive on the topic of children, which kind of... the Emperor loves to give Vader sick burns between this and the Lord of the Sith's book. He's kind of always on the offensive with him. But Silo is here to argue that the Emperor doesn't need an apprentice in the traditional sense. The Emperor demands something worthy of his attention, and the group all turn to attack Vader. So with issue 6, Silo is beginning to describe all of the combatants as they attack Vader one by one. The lightsaber users are twins raised from a very young age by him. They are genetically modified and have cybernetic enhancements. And the Emperor comments on how it's nice that he has a spare since they are twins and all. The next combatant is the Trandoshan. It's explained that he has an AI implanted in his brain that guides his base instincts and blocks out all feelings such as pain. But this member's it's not really the Trandoshan in a traditional sense. The combatant is actually the AI. And he tells the Emperor that if he doesn't like the current iteration, he could implant it to anything, maybe even a rancor. Next up is Tulan. She's the girl with the droids. She's an R&D scientist, and she sees and fights through her droid cloud. They can shoot lasers and project force fields. Her colleagues were on the Death Star when it blew up, and she wants her revenge. Lastly is Commander Carbon. He was a Mon Cal that was in the Clone Wars. This is the first time he's mentioned, so don't try to go and find him. And anything else, his ship was destroyed and he spent 18 years on life support. The last 2 years, he was enhanced to be a cyborg and he takes after General Grievous. He's pretty much just a head on top of a Mon Cal head on top of a metal skeleton. And he wields 2 purple lightsabers and 2 blue lightsabers. So I hope you like Grievous because it's basically another one. And now that we're done introducing everyone, the Emperor wants to see something real. So Silo orders a fight to the death. This time, instead of just attacking Vader, they're all fighting amongst themselves. Vader and the Trandoshan are fighting, and it's going back and forth, and it looks like the Trandoshan might do some serious damage when Morit, the male lightsaber user, kills it from behind. The Emperor calls them off, seeing as the herd has been thinned out enough, and he says he's going to have use for all of them. But at the end of the day, he's only going to need one. He tells them that they shouldn't kill each other, but if they do, he better not find out about it, and he takes Vader along with him into the next room. He's been very impressed with Vader and how he mustered up his own forces. He thought this was kind of beyond him, but Vader is just focused on all of the other apprentices, and he tells them that they're all abominations, but the Emperor counters saying that he's one. If it wasn't for the Emperor, that Vader would already be dead, and he's disappointed by the failure of Vader after Mustafar and how far he's fallen. Vader's angry about the fact that the twins have been trained for 20 years to replace him, but the Emperor says, this is how it is. If you can beat them, cool, but if they beat you, then you deserve it, and they're going to take your place. Vader leaves and has Dr. Aphra launch them off at once. They then get a message from Boba Fett, and the two meet up back on Vader's Star Destroyer, and we see the same scene from the end of the Star Wars arc. However, this time we see it interstitiated with flashbacks of him learning Padme is pregnant and learning of her death before he cracks the viewport. Afterwards, he immediately goes to contact the Emperor, and the Emperor senses great anger in him and asks if he has anything to say. The Vader says he is angry, but that's how the Emperor would want it, and he will not fail him. And he also perfectly understands the relationship now. We see a few more flashbacks as he returns to his previous spot, and he says, "I have a son. He will be mine. It will all be mine." So, I said earlier in the last episode that I didn't love that they faced off, but it evolves in a way that makes sense, and now we see why Vader's trying to turn Luke in Empire Strikes Back to take over the galaxy as father and son. Overall, I think it's a cool issue, and it's really interesting to see where this goes with all these potential Vader replacements that we know, for the most part, are probably not going to pan out, because they're not in the movies, and he is. So that's it. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Next week, I think. So, hopefully maybe I'll finish Clone Wars Season 6 by then. We'll see. And, whenever Project Luminous is announced, I will definitely have a breakdown of that and whatever episode is most closest to that. But I think for comic books, we'll try and tackle the Chewbacca standalone miniseries. So, thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any feedback, you know where to find me. Twitter @SpicedInPod, Instagram @SpicedInPod. My DMs are open. But yeah, if you have any feedback or if you want me to talk about something in particular, just let me know. Subscribe to the podcast if you like what you hear. Thanks to Graham Bull, as always, for our music, and may the Force be with you all.